Welcome everybody in a fully packed Pakhuis de Zwijger, not only in the ijzaal, but also in the studio next door. All celebrating with us the realization of the Subjectieve Atlas of Amsterdam. My name is Indira van 't Klooster, director of Arcam, the Architecture Center in Amsterdam. And on the back you saw the making process of the Subjectieve Atlas of Amsterdam in the various stages, of which of course we will talk more. The aim of the Atlas, I think the doors will start closing and then it will become quieter probably also within the audience, and then we'll go on. The aim of course was to diversify perspectives on architecture and public space within the city. And there are so many ways of doing this. For example, and there is one slide behind me, it's called Puberdam. Can we please be a bit more quiet there on the other side? Or close the doors maybe, there is still a place available. A map by Pandiyar Poussaif, who, as a under 18, explained in this map where she actually chills within the city. And it's very interesting to see how many places and how far and in the different neighborhoods where she comes. The second one is called Window Displays by Lude Monchi and Denise Actas, and it shows this very interesting kind of inconsequence of these perceivably open windows that are actually not so open and are actually quite closed. So that's also a way about being open and about being closed within the city. A third one of my favorites, is the cyclists mobilize, which explains this odd way of communicating and sending messages through traffic poles within the city. Or, and then it becomes a little bit more grim, We Were Here, a map which was made by We Sell Reality, which shows all the different places where refugees were being housed once they arrived in Amsterdam. And of course, what you can see here is that it's all in the outskirts of the cities, in old buildings, and not in the vibrant city center. And then the last one, just as a quick overview, Claiming Public Space, a map by Verdedig Noord, which looks deeper into this maybe nice habit of putting picnic tables on grass fields, but also doubts and looks deeper into if it's actually like a sign of hospitality, or maybe claiming space that used to be used by others, and then also creating friction. Yes, so now all is quiet within the audience. Everybody is sitting down. Very nice. So let's go on and up to the second part. And for that, I would like to invite Annelys de Vet, who's a researcher and designer. Please welcome her to the stage. Thank you very much. Anne Vera Veen, who is an anthropologist and also a researcher. And Wouter Stroet, designer, activist, researcher. Welcome. So, it's done.
Yes.
The work is done. Are you happy?
I'm very happy and proud as well.
Good, good. Maybe just to start, how was your morning?
It's a good question. My morning was fine. I hurt my shoulder really badly, so every morning I have a really stiff shoulder. So usually it's better, but now I was busy with my shoulder, but I'm happy it's evening now.
Thank you very much. Annelys, I'll start with you. You can also explain why this question, of course, is a very important element of the workshops that have been done to create the atlas. But maybe could you explain what is a subjective atlas in general?
A subjective atlas is a book with a collection of maps that maps a city, a region, or a place from inside out by the citizens, by the inhabitants themselves. So the atlas is really based on situated knowledge and lived experience. Well, a traditional an atlas or a traditional map is always made from an outsider perspective with a semi-neutral position, as if there's no author of a map, as if the map kind of represents a certain truth or a certain scientific truth. And while the subjective atlas kind of questions this neutrality or supposedly neutrality of maps, but particularly it addresses the knowledge from inside out. How is a place experienced? Through what kind of, like, we all bring with us certain histories, certain bodies, certain emotions, and it makes us live a city, experience a place on a completely different way. And so are our maps. And so it's not, I think, one map is not a problem. Actually, one map is a problem. The idea is that we need plural maps from different perspectives, different scales, different voices. And that is what the Subjectieve Atlas is doing, trying to collect these different voices, these different perspectives, and in total to build a narrative that's larger than a single map, of larger than the single experience. And then there's a dialogue between these different perspectives, between these different ways of looking, and that makes a larger story that you as a reader can connect to on a different way. So you as a reader are being addressed on maybe also on your position of reading it.
And this was number 14 of the series of subjective atlases.
Yes.
So, how was this one different, or what was most remarkable about the Amsterdam Atlas?
What I found very interesting in this atlas is, well, first of all, number 14 means that we also had 14 times this experience, or 13 times, and this was the 14th. So you learn from each experience. Every time it's with a collective of people, and each time they make it better and think, oh yeah, this is a better methodology, this works better, this is a nicer way of addressing it. So in that sense, kind of the knowledge for making an atlas hasn't been as rich as it has been with this atlas. And on the other side, what I found really, really inspiring and beautiful is the way we collaborated. First of all, kind of the initiative that through Annelys and through Arcam came in order to make a subjective atlas. So there's Arcam, which has a certain authority, a certain position, and using or embracing the position or the methodology of a subjective atlas to address other perspectives in the built environment of Amsterdam. And then the way we have set it up, which I think Wouter and Annelys will tell more about, but like how we worked with partners, the partners invited participants. And so there was on such a layered way working together with people, and it was on such a generous way also. There were very different backgrounds, different perspectives, different ways of mapping things through photos, drawings, infographics, text, but also on very different kind of situations. And I think the way this came together was a really, I don't know the word, but it was something generous, inspirational, joyful, critical, full of love, colorful. And I think that's kind of step by step, and maybe sometimes quite long steps, or I think the workload exceeded our expectations. We postponed the deadline of the presentation of the book launch, which I think is brilliant that it's the first day of spring, it's the Iranian New Year, so I think it cannot be a better day to launch the Subjective Atlas of Amsterdam. So in the end, everything was, kind of organically, intuitively, personally kind of fell in place.
Annelys, you were maybe most concerned with the process. Could you explain a bit better how you found all the different artists and contributors and how they worked in the workshops?
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for a nice explanation. So we started a bit more than 2 years ago, I think, to think about the concept of the atlas, and always central to our question was like, how can we bring in other voices than the voices that we usually hear in the world of architecture, project development, also policymakers, or all the people who are in decision-making positions talking about the built environment. And we thought like, okay, so we want these other voices, but are we like representatives of this institute the best people to find these voices? And I will speak for myself. I don't even live in Amsterdam. I live in Rotterdam. I identify as a white, theoretically educated person. I brought a lot of shame on me with this comment. But I think you get my point, that we had the feeling that we are not necessarily the best people to like invite all the voices to participate to this atlas. And in order to overcome this, we decided to work with different partner organizations. Sometimes it was like an activist group, like Amsterdam Noord. We worked with ILIA, the Archive for Queer History, with the artist collective We Sell Reality. That is a collective of people who came new to the Netherlands as refugees. We worked together with different more organic organizations, such as the Belmar Believers and other organizations in Amsterdam South. with initiatives such as Startblok Elzenhagen, the students from the Sandberg Institute, Radio Voorwaarts, and then am I missing?
No.
Yeah.
But a lot of individuals as well that
Yes.
also contributed.
Yeah. So what we did, basically, we invited these organizations to come together, and we said, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to organize a workshop with people that you invite from your network, and you can choose the way you do it, like through an open call, such as Ilya did, or maybe you have a very close network and you come together every week already, like Vertelt Noord was doing, or like you have your ways, because we had the feeling like our institutional ways are not necessarily the best, or we should not be the ones deciding. And well, we asked them to organize a workshop, which I think, yeah, maybe Wouter can tell a little bit more about.
Sorry, about which workshop?
About like the
general
workshop,
workshops.
yeah, the
I was
general
thinking
workshops
specific.
that we
Yeah,
asked the
of course.
partners to organize.
Yeah, so all the workshops that we organized started with this question that you just asked me, which is like, how was your morning and how did you come here? That was like a way to break the ice, of course. And what's also important to note is that all these all the workshops that we organized were not in Arcam, but in locations that the participants chose themselves. So, for instance, the community center Rietwijker in the Banne, where Vertelt Noord has their headquarters. The Frankrijk, a former squad, where a lot of people from Radio Voorwaarts feel at home. Startblok Elzenhagen, where a lot of people actually live. And I think that was really helpful and important to do these workshops in this location, because of course the people already feel more comfortable there. But it's also helpful because the people, the workshop participants didn't have to verbalize the environment anymore, because we were in this environment. So you could directly refer to the environment where you were.
But then I think two things are quite unique about this atlas. One of them is that you didn't make a chapter refugees, a chapter under 18s, or a chapter like that, but you mixed the maps amongst them and with each other again, and making different selections and groups. So the question would be, how did you do that? How did you make those choices? And maybe the other question would be, because there's also a design element in all the maps, right? So your role as a designer is, although maybe very modest, but also quite present. How did that work?
Right. I think for the first thing, we didn't do this checklist because it's also impossible, because you can be queer and be a refugee, or you can, like, that's the first thing, right? That you can't really create these chapters because they're all intertwined. Did that make sense, what I meant? So, of course, like people from We Saw Reality might identify as queer, so these chapters are of course not something we want. It's an atlas with spreads, but you can read it in non-linear ways. And with the design process, so the mornings in the workshop were about sharing these experiences of how you live in the city. And then in the afternoons, we made these like sketches that you see here, which is basically the first steps, like one over there that's almost identical to how it turned out in the book. And I think it was always funny. You had like two camps. So one, the more academically skilled camp, they will just write down their ideas on the paper. And the more visually skilled people will already sketch out. As a designer, the second is a bit more easier to work with, because I could just like, it's a visual document, but both turned out great. And my part after the workshop was a lot of back and forth with all the participants. So I would be in direct contact with most of them, or with the workshop coordinator, and then help them make this sketch into the design you see in the book.
Maybe I can add something to the editorial approach.
Yeah, quickly, because I would like to dig deeper into the maps themselves.
Okay, so I think what's important with the kind of the order of things. So first of all, everybody contributes as an individual, whatever bagage or whatever someone brings with. And then the editorial line is more that you kind of, it's a bird perspective. So you see things from the top, And then you come closer and closer, then it's the public space, maybe it's the facades, it's the building, you come inside the houses, you come to the objects, the people, their dreams, their fears, and the symbols is then the flag. And that's a kind of editorial approach or editorial line that's in all the atlases, and that defines a bit the order, but it's also very intuitive. So we've been kind of back and forth thinking, no, this one, no. And then on a certain moment, it feels right. And then also the different contributions contribute to each other. And I think that has been quite maybe time-consuming process, but that's really the editorial process to refine how things come together and how a larger narrative appears throughout the contributions.
Let's see how that works out. First, a warm applause for Anne-Vera and Wouter. Annelys will stay on stage because you will interview 4 of the artists that made the maps. So I will also get out of the way, and then we'll invite 4 people. So floor is yours, Annelys.
So maybe I can invite first Tefiri, visual artist and member of the art collective We Sell Reality. Alexandra Roepen van der Voort, visual artist from the Baarsjes. Piotr will stay in the audience, but I will announce him. A student, a sociologist from Poland, and an expert in moving houses. You will know why in a bit. And Freer, researcher in transgender healthcare and an assistant civil councillor of the city of Amsterdam at Bijeen. Freer. So these are just some of the amazing map makers of the Atlas. We will look at the first Atlas, first map, which is from Tefiri. And we can have it on the screen. Tefiri, visual artist. We see you here in the streets, public spaces of Amsterdam. Could you tell a little bit more about what we see here on the map?
Thank you. This is the fountains in parks of Amsterdam. This is different places all over the city, and I'm a member of We Say Reality. Before that, we are here, and we lived in every corner of Amsterdam as crack houses and night shelters or whatever. Especially when I live in night shelters, it's not easy. You sleep there and you leave early in the morning. So park is your place to stay the daytime. And these fountains are in every parks of Amsterdam, so we enjoy them. And I start falling in love with them. And kind of, when I exercise photography, I used to go there to picture them. And when we have a sport tournament, which we are here, we also use them as to quench our thirst or whatever. And these are my favorite places, and these were my contribution for this atlas.
And you live now for 20 years in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Have you seen the accessibility of public fountains being changed in the last 20 years?
Yeah. Some are gone and some are built. It's yeah. The old ones are no more there, but municipality started to build some of them and now they are out of parks too, like some squares, and on the street too there are some, but I don't know whether the number is increased or decreased.
And do you have the feeling there's enough?
Not yet. If possible, if there were many, because in the parks when we play football, for example, you have to go to the other part of the park to get these fountains. And if there is nearby one, you can enjoy them. And if there are more, it will be preferable. Yeah.
And the design is good,
Very good one.
but the availability is too weak.
Yeah. True.
But this is the lesson we have to learn from your
Yeah.
contribution.
Yeah, that is it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Alexandra,
Hello.
you have made 2 contributions to the Atlas. The first one is it really fits the day, the first day of spring. All the flowers in your garden with incredible poetic imaginary names. But tonight we're going to talk about your other contribution, which we're going to see now. So we have here 2 images. I believe it's your kitchen.
Yes, it's the inside of my kitchen.
Can you tell a bit about what we see and what's the difference between the 2 photos?
Yes, it's kind of a moving portrait of my kitchen. The kitchen has the ability to change. It can be very low, so that I can sit on my triple chair and cook comfortably, so without physical strain. And on the other picture, we see Annelys, you. And you are also enjoying cooking in my kitchen, but you're standing, and as we see, the kitchen counter is more high. So we call this a high-low kitchen, with and it has 60 centimeters range.
And this, when you moved into this house 20 years ago, I think?
97.
Yeah, the kitchen was not like this. So how did it happen that you got this kitchen?
Yes, that's right. First there was a normal kitchen, and then I asked support from the municipality, from Amsterdam, and they honored my question if they could support developing this kitchen, because it's important that I can live with tall people or enjoy with tall people, or that tall people help me cleaning the house, or that we can cook together and having fun.
But so between the first time you thought about that your kitchen needs to be adjustable and the moment the kitchen was installed, like how many letters, how much time? Because now it sounds quite easy, but I know it wasn't a very easy process.
No, that's right. First, we had to write a very smart letter, and we people from the municipality came at home to see me, to talk to me, and so that I could tell what I needed. And together with family and ergotherapeut, we made together a design, a drawing for the kitchen. Yeah.
And then finally, by the approval of the municipality, you were able to build it.
Yes, they when they honored my question, then they helped developing it together with the builders. Yeah, quite some time, maybe half a year or more.
Yeah, it's quite an effort also.
But I was very happy with it, and it's still okay.
And if we look through your kitchen to the city of Amsterdam, like what can we learn from it?
Yes, well, what I said, the social aspect is for me very important. So of course Amsterdam is a very social city. I mean, everybody on the street wants to help me whenever I need help. But there are still some buildings which are very difficult to enter with a wheelchair, or because the steps, we have beautiful monuments, but the steps are not always so easy. And I understand when it's a monument, you can't change it so easy. But also in galleries or there it's very, for instance, the receptions, that's very difficult because they're all standing. People are standing. Yeah, that's difficult for small people.
And also high tables with the snacks.
High tables,
Or for the drinks.
that's right. And also, yeah, like Arti Amasitia. That's a very nice place for artists. But above is the exhibition. And so I would like to be a member, but I don't become a member because I can't go up. And yeah.
So if there's one thing that we can learn from your contribution is that we should really feed the debate and the awareness on differently shaped bodies.
Yes, I really would like that there is more awareness of differently shaped bodies. And so there's more integration, more understanding.
Thank you, Alexandra. Then we dive into the next contribution. Maybe you all know it because you've seen it today in the Parool. Who has read the Parool today? Okay, the others definitely should read it tomorrow because then you hear all about the story of Piotr. Piotr, I introduced you as a specialist of moving houses, a professional. Why?
Hi, my name is Piotr. And yeah, my contribution is I had to move 13 times in 5 years. And yeah, as you can guess, it's a commentary on a housing crisis in Amsterdam. And yeah, I do believe housing crisis became a very big part of living in the city, living in Amsterdam. And yeah, in my contribution, I wanted to devote myself into this topic. And I think also the format of a subjective atlas is a perfect format to tell a personal story that can maybe reflect a bigger picture that the city is now struggling with. And I think, yeah, whenever we speak of a housing crisis, I think we speak in more like generalist terms of a collective experience and estimates how much the rent is increasing. But also I think if we shift the perspective more to individual stories, I think we can realize that how the issue affects our lives.
So
I'm getting applause.
we see here a graph, like
Yeah.
on the left, the lowest, like what was the cheapest rent and what was the highest rent that you paid?
The cheapest rent was, I think, was like around 300
That's a...
per month. Yeah.
Or what kind of room?
It was very good room, but it was a student room. It was room number, I think, a small dot at Kloveniersburg in the center.
Number 11. No, is that the lowest?
Oh yeah, that was the lowest. Sorry, it was Tuchelavech. It was 200.
Here.
Yes, it was 200 per month. It was a very bad
short.
room, very short until I found something more temporary. Yes, yeah, that was.
And what was the best one?
The best one is that I'm living right now. It's number 13. I'm still living there, but I also enjoy living in Prinsengracht. It's number 9. That was nice one, yeah.
And why are some green and some red?
The green spots are the one that I could stay registered and mostly with a contract, and the red ones are the one that, yeah, it was without contract and unregistered, so yeah.
And do you have an idea what Amsterdam can do about it?
No, actually, I don't really know because I don't know how this system can work in a way that people can live their life freely and it can accommodate everyone's wishes, because I get the registration is needed in Gemeente, so you can get a BSN number, you can apply for a phone contract, sign a job contract, or get health insurance. So that's needed, but this system also feels oppressive at times, you know, and it is extremely hard to find a place in Amsterdam and to stay registered in Amsterdam, especially for people like me who are not from the Netherlands originally, and we cannot rely on our parents, we cannot rely that we're gonna stay registered at our parents' places, or we cannot rely at first on our network. So yeah, also you can see that from 2019, I was only able to afford more long-term houses when I secured a higher paying job. So, you know, it is kind of excluding people who are not from here, who don't really have a high income, and yeah, that's something that I think gemeente could improve, or I don't know. I'm not a policy maker, but those are just suggestions.
Thank you. I think we can, it can learn a lot from it, and it gives a very intimate insight in your situation.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
I hope it. Thank you.
Freer, you made an incredible map.
Apparently.
The first transgender map. Oh, I think it's the first. The real.
I think so. I'm not aware of other ones. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Could you explain a bit what we're seeing here on the trans safety map that you developed?
This map is a conceptualization, my conceptualization of a specific trans community I live and vibe in here in town. That indicates in how far and how and where Amsterdam is clearly a transphobic city in a transphobic country. That said, there are places that are mostly red, like, for example, the suit store, which is not my experience, but that of a trans non-binary, gender non-conforming person of color that I know. They were too feminine to fit a men's suit, so they were pushed away from the store, like, no, we don't serve you. So that's one example, and it's an example out of most probably many. On the other side is my home and office, Freer headquarters, and that should at least be safe for every trans person. At least generally, there can be people, of course, who somehow, because they don't like me, and that's perfectly okay, don't feel at home there, or for the situation, there are places like Transgender Network, COC, the Bijen office in City Hall, that should, of course, be trans-friendly places. Like at the Bijen office, there are the chairperson of our office in City Council is a trans woman, black trans woman. I'm a trans person working there, so that should, of course, be a safe place. Like the COC, like many bars. Another good place, for example, would be, in general speaking, Frankrijk. Well, at least on the Wednesdays and Saturdays often, because it's queer nights, and those are really for the underrepresented and oppressed trans people and queer people. There are parks which are not always safe. Sometimes they are. There's police precinct, which is usually not safe for trans people and for people of color, let alone the intersection of them. That should go for itself, actually, etc. Like the other thing, like straight bars. Yes, straight bars are overrated anyway. And secondly, they are surely not safe for trans people and gender non-conforming people. We so often get questioned there, like, what are you? Like, fuck that.
What I found interesting is while we were making the graphic design of your map, like first there was a fade between the green and the red, the safe and the unsafe.
Yes, it's a gradient.
Yes, the gradient. And then you said, no, Frankrijk and gay bar, they may not be just in the curved direction, they should be equal. And then you said, no, but actually suit supply, maybe there should still be some little bit of safety, and in my house actually there's also a little bit of unsafety.
Yes, you cannot say that specific places are safe or unsafe for everybody. That's unrealistic. That's why I give the example. My place should be safe for everybody, but probably isn't. I don't know everybody. It's not really accessible for everybody. I got a friend in a wheelchair who has trouble accessing the house. So in that sense, it's not a good place. This suit store can be helpful for specific trans masculine people who look masculine enough. But if you apparently don't look gender conforming enough, you're not welcome. So that's why even bad places sometimes have a little bit of green, and even my place and other by definition safe places may have a little red tinge in it, because we cannot guarantee it's safe for everybody.
Thank you. I think that makes your map really rich, and I invite you all to read the little texts that come with it that are very personal and imaginable. And I think we can learn a lot from it. So thank you, Freer. Then I'd like to thank you, Teferi, Freer, Alexandra, and Piotr. And the floor is...
And Annelys, thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing these stories, these insights, and these reflections on the city and what it's really like. Very important starting points also for different kind of conversations on how organizations or the systems of the city could actually learn from this. So in the next panel, I would like to invite various people who will reflect on the meaning and the importance of these maps in, let's say, the regular systems of the city. And the first one is Nadia Awaki, who is an economist and a strategist, and very, very welcome on the stage. Maybe take the one over there. Nadia. Denise Koelewijn, a project manager from IJmere, also very, very welcome. Social housing company. Oer Pekdemir, who is the regional director of the Rabobank. Very, very welcome. Peter Heuveling, director of AM, which is a project development company. And Robert Winkel, who is an architect, but also the general chair of the Commissie Ruimtelijke Kwaliteit. Thank you all for being here. We all asked you to look at the atlas and choose a map and then combine it with a picture that you brought yourselves. I would like to start with you, Nadia, because you as an economist, a researcher, a strategist, you are looking at the city in various ways. And the atlas is, we are also one of the introduction pieces in the atlas, because the way you look at the city as an economist is really, really different than usual economists do look at the city. So could you please explain why this atlas is important, you think?
I think Annelys gave a really good explanation on the importance of a subjective atlas. Things that I encounter in my work is this implicit norm. So even though we live in a really diverse society on many layers, there's this implicit norm, especially I think a lot of professionals that work with the city let me say this, they come from a specific group, or like they're a representation of a certain group. And I think that it's so important to be aware of the fact that there is no norm in the city, and that your truth is not somebody else's truth. The way you use the city is different. And this is something I think that should be, for everybody who works with the city, should be a given, to not take anything as a norm.
So what map did you choose from the atlas? I think we have a picture of it behind you.
Yes, yeah, I chose the fountain. I chose the fountain because of the fact that our cities are becoming more and more like a model to exploit financially. The housing crisis, specific business models like an Uber. So the city, because of its agglomeration of people, there's a lot of money you can make out of the city when it comes to real estate, but all kinds of services. While if you look at on the other side, you could also say like this agglomeration also allows us to organize things ourselves collectively. And I think the water fountain, the water well actually is, if you want to explain like the idea behind commons, so public ownership, collective ownership. The well, I think, is a really good example. Now we pay for our water, but what if we could actually create a resource that we collectively own that would make it possible for the people that live in the city to have to organize the essential goods, from water to energy to housing. I think especially these essential goods that are essential for our living, and now they're becoming more and more something to make money out of. While, yeah, I think that we should, that the future should be more about how can we organize the city in a way that the people that actually make use of the city, that live in the city, are served by it and own as much as possible and become less vulnerable because you are operating in a system that is actually exploiting the city and its people. Yeah.
Denise, as representative of a social housing company, which map did you choose by way of introducing yourself?
I have to push this, I guess. Yeah, now it's working. With Meer, the housing company, I was especially interested also in the story of Piotr, of course, the housing crisis and what it does to us. And one of the solutions at the moment is building a lot of flex houses, as they are called. And I have very mixed feelings about it, because of course you want to make houses that are permanent. So the way that Amere chose at the moment is to make permanent houses, but they're usually on not a permanent piece of land, so they have to move. But the quality we want is permanent. But I also agree very much with what she says. Like, they're all numbers and statistics and things like that. And this struck me really very much because now you see how people are living there. And also the differences. And some are really making a very nice and really comfortable and like a real house of it. And yeah, so that is why I chose those.
Thank you. It's Adinde van Kranendong's map. Are you in the audience? Oh, that's a pity. Any of the people that live in one of these studios know? Yes. Okay, thank you. Oer Pekdemir, you also chose a map.
Yeah, I chose the map of Roman. He's describing about, especially at the pandemic time, the contradiction between economic growth and social growth. And why I chose those one is, it's just a year ago that the front page of the Parole said it's going good with the economic growth, but not with the welfare, well-being in the city. That was a research of Rabo research of my colleagues. Somehow it inspired me to see that economic growth is just one-dimensional way of looking about what the city would be or a country would be. The main thing is that you have to look in a broader perspective at the other dimensions of so-called brede welvaart, well-being of the city from other perspectives. So I chose this one of Roman Shevkansko.
Is Roman in the audience? Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing this map with us. Peter Heuvelink, you also chose a map.
Yes, indeed, I chose a map. So how I wake up this morning, I thought, oh, it's a nice conversation in Dutch, but so I switched now to my native English. So if you don't understand me enough, you can ask me an extra question maybe. So I chose a map of Gaasperdam because we have a project in Gaasperdam, and as AM, as an area development company, we are one of the front runners in our business to collaborate with the neighborhood, and we think really that we are a visitor. So we, at that moment, and we are looking for forms to stay longer and permanent. But sometimes it can be in stay as an investor for rental apartments or this moment in Wikkevoort and Baaienskwartier. We stay for the openbare ruimte, the Robert, you are public space. Yes, that's the word. So we will collaborate in the public space for a longer term, and at that perspective, we think we have more influence on the city and the people who live there to stay close to the concepts of our projects. And in Gaasperdam, I learned in and that's why the Subjectieve Atlas is a very good instrument, document. It inspires me. We are not a front runner. We need more contact with the people who grown up there in the neighborhood, because this map is more rich and detailed than our map we can make by our own or with the professionals. So that's why I get inspired by this map.
Thank you. And then maybe to finish the panel set of Robert Winkel, you as the spatial quality advisor or a chair, you have to, to look at the visual and physical quality of the urban environment, but an extra task could be to advise on other important topics.
Yeah.
So I thought you are the person to be here, because we have seen so many personal perspectives on the city that are actually not so personal at all. They are all about much broader systems and things happening in the city. And then at the Spatial Quality Committee, it's usually about facades, it's about windows, it's about materials. But is there a way that you could include all these wisdom that's in the Atlas in this process of selection and aesthetics in architecture?
Yeah, the committee has two phases actually. There's the committee who advises about visual quality and cultural historical values, and that's normally the sense what you call in Dutch the Welstandscommittee before. We got an extra commission, it's the integral commission, who actually encourages and also controls the integral quality, which is more, of course, than only the visual quality. It can also be biodiversity or that's affordable prices for certain spaces. And we advise in this sense about big area developments sometimes, but also about questions which are particular. And then we have these special advisors about sustainability, but also about infrastructures who give then a balanced advice to matters which are important for the Amsterdam people. That's a very interesting thing, because it's already anticipating on a new law which is coming up, the omgevingslaw. I don't know to say it in English.
Spatial law.
The spatial law which is coming up, and it says that we have to advise integral, but also in a public sense, so that everybody can know what is happening. And that's very nice to see what you've done with your atlas, because it's very good to see we are talking actually here about the difference of how the professionals look to the city and how the people themselves look into the city, and what actually is the thing, the aim of the objective, what we want to achieve with this committee, is that we are more part of the people who live here. And that's very interesting about this subjective atlas, because it shows what is happening. And actually, I think it would be a good idea to talk also with the designers of the public space in Amsterdam to show what you catched up out of society and show them what's the lack or what you want to improve in this sense. So there are different approaches, I would say, to get this in a higher level in organizations of spatial planning.
Yeah, well, what struck me in the collection of maps is that most of the issues are actually about designing public amenities, about collective spaces that don't cost money, that are accessible to everybody at any time. Is that something, Peter, that your project at Gaasperplas is focusing on also? Are you looking for these specific criteria that are not like money makers, but more like communal spaces for general good?
yes, that's a part of our project in Gaasplas of Gaasperdam at Geins. It's we collaborate with people who live there to give their influence on the project, but we also want to give the first row for getting the house for people who live in the area, in the neighborhood, but also for people who are the first blood lead or blood bond, the daughters, the sons, the grandfather or grandmother, that they can come back to the neighborhood to close the social networks. Yes, because that's a strong part of the Belmer area, Zuidoost. So that's a part of our vision at that project, so that we can stimulate the people to close the social network again. And there we also have the koopstart regeling, the solution. We figured out also with the Rabobank for Amstelveen to give people who can spend all the money for the apartment, that we stay in it with our own money, to give the people the house to buy the house for a lower price, and when they move in 2 years, 3 years, 20 years, then we get our money back. So it's another form of financing the house and give other people a chance.
Yeah. And Denise, at IJmere, I know you have been looking at the process of the Subjectieve Atlas quite closely from the very beginning. But so you have also seen, as we have learned, that if you really want to include all these different voices and perspectives, it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience and a lot of talking and discussing things. Is that a way of working that would fit the current building context in general?
Now, that is, I think, indeed very difficult because of the amount of time and energy that you have to put in it. So I think the way it's done now, I think in this form is not suitable for us. But well, as you know, we have a partnership already for a few years. So I think the parts of it we can use, like create a very nice and comfortable environment. So if we want to interview people, because if we want to do a new project, we have to have 70% of the people that live there have to agree with it. And by the communication goes by representatives of the inhabitants, and that is sometimes quite. These are not always the voice of the whole community. So I think there are elements of the way that you did it that we can use to also hear the other voices within a group of inhabitants. Yeah. So maybe just by doing it, for instance, in half a day and in a very comfortable atmosphere, and just invite everybody, and not only this committee. So that is maybe one of the ways we can use it. Yeah.
Nadia, I think you also said that in the Subjectieve Atlas itself, that when designers and clients and architects start creating inclusive processes, that usually all the mistakes have already been made in being not inclusive. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Again?
All
How sharp can my answer be?
All the blind spots that are in everyday practice of architects, of clients, and even if you want to make an inclusive process, you're always bound by your own black spots.
Yeah, I think we all have our blind spots, and I think the more privileged you are, the more blind spots you have. So you have to be more aware.
So how can we overcome that? Because we have 4 people that are really, really willing to kind of include the lessons of the Atlas into their everyday processes. What would you advise to them?
I don't know. I think everybody's trying it in their own way. But I think to really have this awareness that the way you look at things is only one perspective, and to really try to look at it also from the perspective of the most vulnerable, maybe, because then you can have a minimum actually that can hold most people. So if you would include the most vulnerable, that it helps to actually, how to say, open up the space in which you look for solutions. I also, I don't know, I handed in
another map.
Yeah.
We will
like maybe like it helps
yeah,
me with stories.
I will give you time to explain
Yeah.
this map later. But first, I would like to close off this first hour at the Pakhuis de Zwijger for the people that are watching from outside and at AT5. So thank you very much, panelists, very much audience, speakers, artists, and contributors and makers of the Atlas. Very nice to have you here. The Atlas will be displayed also at the Scheltema windows in the city, so that is very, very funny. But of course, it's also it can be ordered online and in different bookshops. Check the Pakhuis de Zwijger program for other events. For example, the 3 events that we are organizing about the Amsterdam Architecture Prize in April and in May. So thank you all. Can I have a warm applause for everybody here in the Southern? Thank you very much.